Good afternoon, and welcome to Ethanol Producer Magazine's 2020 Editorial Preview. My name is Lisa Gibson. I'm the editor of Ethanol Producer Magazine, and I also have John Nelson with me here today. He's the Vice President of Marketing and Sales for Ethanol Producer Magazine. Our sponsor today is the International Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo. That's coming up June 15th to the 17th next year in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have an agenda for today's webinar that I'll go through quickly here. So we'll start with talking about Ethanol Producer Online, and then we'll have some information on a digital press package, the audience breakdown, print facts, presence and reach, editorial highlights, and stay tuned at the end for an exclusive webinar discount that we'll be offering for all the attendees on today's webinar. Before we get started and before I hand things over to John, I just want to say a couple things about the ethanol industry currently. Looking back at this past year, in 2019, the biggest topics, I think, are the E15 waiver, of course, as well as the small refinery waivers that have displaced ethanol meant to be blended into our fuel supply. So the E15 RVP waiver removes the limits on sales of the blend in the summer months, and that's a battle that this industry has been fighting for years. The demand potential in gallons is enormous with the waiver in place, and the industry is hoping to really significantly increase ethanol sales across the country. There are cohesive branding efforts underway coming together with retailer chains, and those chains are also signing on to help educate foreign markets about ethanol and its benefits. So I think we have a lot of news coming this year, positive news, as far as E15 that we'll be covering in the magazine. So the small refinery waivers, I think most of us have heard of those and are familiar. They're being handed out by the U.S. EPA to large oil companies, which is not the intent of those waivers. They're reducing demand a little bit and leaving gallons on the table that should be blended in compliance with the RFS. The waivers have contributed to some idling of plants. The battle is ongoing. There have been a lot of proposals, petitions, hearings, and official statements coming from all directions, communicating the need to reallocate gallons. All of our trade organizations and a lot of the larger producers have been very active in communicating to the EPA and the Trump administration how important those gallons are going to be. So we're waiting to find out what will happen there. And the trade organizations and the people in DC working on this seem to be really hopeful for a quality solution, that this will be made up, and we're still pushing forward. So with all that in the foreground, the ethanol industry is making strides in technology advancements. Foreign markets hold hope. Policy in development now would help boost ethanol demand. New process tweaks and strategies are set to increase yield, and advocacy and education are as crucial now as they have ever been. We're still moving forward, and we have a lot to report as we move into 2020. I'm going to hand things off to John, and he'll get things started talking about our ethanolproducer.com.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone for being on our webinar today. Before we get into the print magazine, I'd like to share some of the website traffic numbers and digital offerings that we currently have with Ethanol Producer Magazine. Lisa and her team are diligently working each week to bring our audience timely and relevant content that keeps readers coming back for important news and features and updated information about the ethanol industry. Through ongoing stories being posted to the website, top news videos, new and original content, production facility maps, webinars, press releases, listings in the ethanol industry directory, and search engine optimization strategies, our magazine website is generating traffic with a very engaged audience, as you see in the numbers on the slide. Each month, we receive more than 64,000 page views on ethanolproducer.com, which equates to a lot of people viewing our content in your online advertisement. We have the website traffic listed by country to demonstrate that our digital platform is truly an international audience. Yes, it's dominated by the U.S. market. However, if you are looking to also reach the international ethanol and biofuels markets, our digital and online offerings are a great option when building your advertising and marketing plan. Our e-newsletter, Ethanol Week, goes out to 45,000 plus industry stakeholders and producers of ethanol. This audience has opted into receiving this information, and we've built this targeted email list during what is now nearly 2 decades since we first started Ethanol Producer Magazine in its current state in 2002. I'd also like to note that we have all past print issues posted and archived on our website dating back to 2002. Our social media followers are posted here as well, and we've grown to nearly 7,000 followers on Twitter and more than 2,000 followers on Facebook. This is important because as people become more and more connected to their phones, computers, and tablets, we are leveraging this behavior to drive traffic to our websites. We post every story created by Lisa and her team to our social media sites. In turn, people click and share these stories. When they're clicked, they go back to ethanolproducer.com to read the story and see the advertisements that you have placed online. We even have an option for advertisers to be our social media sponsor each month. New this year at Ethanol Producer Magazine is our digital press package offering. We've combined our paid press release service, our top news video sponsorships, and our online advertising platform into a lower priced package that can help create a digital campaign that hits some of our most engaging platforms. You're able to take advantage of our news emailing list and get our product and get your product or service sent via email in a press release format. And you can be the sponsor of our weekly top news video, which generates customer engagement. The top news video is published and sent in both our e-newsletter that goes out to nearly 45,000 people and is posted at the top of our website with a link directed back to your website. In addition to the video and press release, you are able to post an advertisement to our website where it will generate impressions and clicks. This package is for marketers and advertisers who are looking to monitor and track their advertisements' performance and quickly get their message out to our audience. Learn more about our digital press package and its special pricing by contacting one of our account managers. They can also give you information on how they'll help track the performance of each ad. They can be reached at service@bbiinternational.com. Now, let's get to the star of our show, our print publication, which I mentioned has been going strong for nearly 2 decades. Each month, Ethanol Producer Magazine is mailed to 5,000 people. This circulation reaches 17,000 based on third-party research that shows how many people read each magazine mailed, which is 3.4 per issue. This circulation of 5,000 also includes 941 producers. When broken down by industry, the largest category of our subscribers is producers of ethanol and biofuels. Each issue is also mailed to each ethanol facility within the U.S. and Canada. Lisa will be covering the full bonus distribution of each issue shortly. So sometimes I get the question of print advertising and its effectiveness in today's market. Without a doubt, print advertising in industry-specific publications is a valuable and effective tool for marketers and companies looking to reach a niche audience. On the slide before you, we've displayed some stats that help demonstrate why print is necessary in a fully integrated marketing plan. Based on MRI Simmons Starch advertising research in 2008, 62% of magazine readers act after seeing a print magazine ad, and 52% recall a product or service. Because ads in magazines are more engaging and valued when compared to other media platforms. Print ads tend to create more of a positive experience for the audience as well. And similar to digital advertising, larger ads and premium positions create stronger awareness. We've also tested this theory with our audience through a third-party research firm, and it holds true with Ethanol Producer Magazine. For more details on our research, please see our media kit listed at contact an account manager. So here's a listing of all of our products and platforms available to you as an advertiser, in addition to our traditional print publication advertising. Our fall and spring wall mats are sent with updated information to all ethanol facilities within the U.S. and Canada, and they typically sell out. They are also mailed to all of our magazine subscribers and given to all attendees of the International Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo. Many production facilities hang these maps in their boardrooms and offices. By advertising on the map, you'll be able to establish your brand with the industry. The Ethanol Industry Directory is one of the most used and anticipated ancillary products of Ethanol Producer Magazine. It has been a staple within the industry for years, and it sits on people's desks year-round. We offer one free listing per company, so I would highly recommend going online or contacting us to take advantage of it. Because of its long shelf life, I also encourage you to take a look at the advertising options inside the directory. Our newsletters are highly popular and the backbone of our digital platforms. As mentioned earlier, our newsletter, Ethanol Week, is sent to 45,000 plus industry stakeholders and generates a large number of impressions and clicks. And relatively new is our Ethanol Retailer e-newsletter, which is sent to 23,000 each month to industry professionals within the fuel marketing and retail industry. Advertising in these platforms allows you to easily track the performance of your advertisement. And as a sponsor of the weekly Ethanol Top News videos, you can get your message out in one of the most engaging platforms we have. Each week, Ethanol Producer Magazine showcases the top news in the 2 to 3 minute video featured on ethanolproducer.com and in the weekly e-newsletter. The videos deliver news to subscribers and visitors in an engaging and well-produced format that receives exceptionally high viewership. We also have listed here webinars, and webinars are one of our most popular products we offer. Much like today's webinar, we'll help design, produce, and market a custom webinar focused on your company's product or service and promote it to the ethanol industry. These webinars have been most effective when companies use case studies on how their product or service has been effective and helped producers be more efficient and profitable. In addition to advertising the webinar and promoting your company as the webinar sponsor online, in our e-newsletter and weekly videos, you will also gain access to all the registrants of the event. It's an effective and engaging way to generate leads. So, as you can see, Ethanol Producer Magazine has many products and platforms that can help you reach and engage the ethanol industry. Please contact us at service@bbiinternational.com to learn more, or one of our account managers will be more than happy to speak with you. Now, I'll send it back over to Lisa.
Thanks, John. Let's dive into editorial highlights and bonus distribution for 2020. So each month, we dedicate 2 themes to each monthly magazine. The feature coverage doesn't always match the themes perfectly. We'll write one feature at least on each of these 2 themes that we have each month, but that leaves us with extra room in the magazine. So there's always room to print off-topic articles, and we're always looking for story ideas. So if you have story ideas, please send them along to us. I also want to mention our editorial board here at Ethanol Producer Magazine. We have a group of 6 plant managers and general managers who really help us guide content. I have a conference call with them every month where we talk about the themes for each magazine. We talk about the important and relevant topics under each of the umbrellas of those themes, and that is how we determine our content each month. That helps us make sure that our coverage is relevant and that we're really addressing the topics that the producers in the ethanol industry want to read about. So let's get started. In January, we have the 2020 Executive Outlook. We are actually working on the January 2020 magazine right now as we speak. So for this Executive Outlook, what we do is we talk to big names in the industry and ask what they see coming at us in the year ahead. So that means CEOs, general managers, we talk to trade groups, we talk to organizations that are really helping set up foreign markets, and we ask them what they see. Risk management and margins. It's a tough time for margins, but we'll talk about some of those factors. There are other factors that are not quite changing margins as heavily as the small refinery exemptions that I mentioned earlier in the webinar. We'll also talk about corn prices, ethanol prices, and natural gas prices. So a lot of different factors that go into risk management and margins, and that's coming up in January. So for bonus distribution in January, we've got the Iowa Renewable Fuel Summit and the Energy Generation Conference. February, policy. This is always a newsworthy and relevant topic from an editorial perspective. Not always easy to sell ads around, but it's incredibly important to update our readers and our industry on what's going on, both in DC and on state levels. So we delve into relevant policy proposals or finished rules, providing details on how they affect ethanol. And we also look for reactions from producers and trade groups. In advocacy and education, this is one of my favorites. This theme allows us to talk about what's being done to get the word out to consumers on ethanol's benefits. But we also talk about partnerships being made to educate the next generation of the ethanol workforce. We've covered trade school programs that add ethanol to their curriculums for mechanics, high school training platforms that introduce ethanol as a renewable option and clear up myths surrounding its production and use, and industry events that further train the current ethanol workforce. This area is always evolving and interesting for us to cover. And February has quite a few bonus distributions. Growth Energy Executive Leadership Conference. It also goes to the National Ethanol Conference, the Commodity Classic, and the International Biomass Conference and Expo. Moving into March, we have yield maximization. This is usually where our coverage revolves around yeast. Evolution and yeast offerings are seeking to increase yield and robustness in strains that are being used in the ethanol industry. And there are several strains out there from suppliers that are making really important gains. So we try to keep an eye on those and cover those under yield maximization when we have that theme. The other one for March is bacteria and biofilm control. We see constant innovations in this area too, in cleaning technologies as well as preventative strategies. And it's a crucial topic, although sometimes the photos aren't pleasing to look at. Bonus distribution for this one is the National Ethanol Conference. Moving into April, we have cleaning services and technologies. The ethanol industry includes several service providers and vendors under the cleaning umbrella. We have so many options for sources and ideas in this category. And again, we seem to come across a new method or technology each year when we cover this topic. In maintenance and asset management, all plants have maintenance procedures in place, but we like to really dig into suggestions from the experts, passing them along to producers to make sure they optimize their own practices. And this is one of those topics that gives a new spin on old ideas. Bonus distribution for the April issue is the annual meeting for the American Oil Chemists Society. Moving into May, co-products. The ethanol industry knows its co-products. Very familiar with those and have really polished those processes, but there are some pretty new and innovative technologies coming out that increase the value of those co-products and add revenue for producers. High protein feed, of course, is a hot topic, with many plants looking for affordable ways to boost their value. Technology. This topic can be related to its co-products partner theme or not. The topic of technology is intentionally broad. That allows us to choose the most relevant story to tell when we begin putting this magazine together. Maybe it's co-products, but maybe it's emissions control, power production, storage, control systems, or something else entirely. Whatever it is, we've got it covered. Bonus distribution for May will be the Distillers Grains Technology Council annual meeting and the International Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo. Moving into June, the E15 issue. This one will be exciting for 2020 because we've got good news this year. We have our RVP waiver for E15, but there's work to do. Campaigns are ongoing to push and promote E15 among retailers and consumers. Collaborative efforts seek to name and brand E15 consistently across the country. The Nebraska Ethanol Board recently announced that it will offer training for retailers on how to install E15 and higher blends. So there's plenty to cover on the expansion of this blend and a lot of news coming up for this year with our RVP waiver in place. Also in June, we have the 2020 Ethanol Producer Awards. In their third year, these awards recognize standout ethanol plants and partnerships under the categories of Board of the Year, Project of the Year, Collaboration of the Year, the Good Neighbor Award, and Workplace of the Year. Our editorial board and staff sift through the nominations and vote on the winners. Not only does it give us a chance to recognize some really stupendous producers in our industry, but it gives our staff more insight into what's going on at the plants we cover. Bonus distribution for June is, again, FEW. That one goes in the attendee bags for everyone who's on site at that show. July, we have equipment innovation. There's always something to cover here. Companies in this space are constantly coming up with new ways to maximize revenue streams and co-products. And again, the hot topic right now seems to be high-protein feed. We're seeing increased value in that feed co-product space, and it looks like the innovations will keep coming. Also in July, we have our ethanol state spotlight, and this time it's Illinois. It's the third largest producer behind Iowa and Nebraska, and we'll explore the industry there just like we did with our spotlights on Iowa and Nebraska in 2019, earlier this year. Bonus distributions, FEW, that's mailed to all the attendees of that show, and the American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers annual meeting. All of those attendees will get the July issue as well. August is the Octane issue. There's policy regarding an octane standard swirling around, and there's talk among trade groups about working together with the oil industry to come to an agreement on a standard. And there's still resistance to lowering any potential standard below 98. There will definitely be some movement in that space by the time August of next year rolls around and when we're putting this magazine together, and hopefully some clarity on the SAFE rule that has been kind of in limbo for a couple weeks now, but that is the proposal for a high octane issue. So there'll be a lot to cover in that space. Environmental regulatory compliance is a good fit for the high octane issue since, again, we'll be talking about policy. We explore environmental regulations as well as proving and improving compliance. Bonus distributions will be the American Coalition for Ethanol Conference. That's about 200 attendees. We'll get the August issue. Moving into September, we'll be talking about finance, exploring some of the larger monetary factors affecting the industry, and tapping some of the experts for advice. Sometimes we like to explore benchmarks and get into financial data for this theme too, really interpret some of the benchmarking and some of the studies that are being done in the ethanol industry. Plant personnel, recruitment and training. Here we get into the human resources world. We take a look at how plants are hiring and preparing their workers for their jobs. Our salary survey this year, which Ethanol Producer Magazine conducts every 2 years, showed that plant employees are being contacted by headhunters. So it seems the use of headhunters to recruit new employees is on the rise, and a lot of different trends in recruitment and training that we'll be covering this year. Bonus distribution for this September issue will be the Growth Energy Biofuels Summit. October, we have data as one of our themes. Luckily, Ethanol Producer Magazine, our editorial staff, has plenty of sources who are passionate about data, conduct benchmarking studies, and can help interpret that for us, as well as explain why it's so crucial for plants to ensure their own data is accurate and then that it is used appropriately. Hand in hand with data is lab tech and quality assurance. I learned this year just how fickle and fragile lab data can be, with the smallest factors capable of derailing it. Just thinking about that margin for error and the great respect I have for lab personnel who do their jobs so meticulously and carefully. So for this theme, we talk about equipment, best practices, and maintenance when we dig into lab quality. Bonus distributions, Biofuels International Conference and Expo, as well as the Fuel Ethanol Lab Conference. And in November, we have sustainability. This topic usually takes us to environmental friendliness in both farming and ethanol production. We haven't had this theme on an editorial calendar for a couple years, so there are definitely some new factors to explore under sustainability and trends to revisit here. Research and development. We're always covering this, but haven't had it on our editorial calendar in a while either. This can be technology, equipment, yeast and enzymes, processes. There are so many things under research and development that are being improved for the ethanol industry, and it'll be a good time to check in on what's being upgraded. Bonus distribution for that November issue will be FOLIC's World Ethanol and Biofuels Conference. About 500 attendees at that show will receive our November issue. And that brings us to December. We'll talk about storage systems, advancements, safety features and options, and how our producers are storing their feedstock and their products. And we'll finish the year with our traditional exports outlook. And what we do there is look ahead to the next year, which will be 2021, and discuss what trade issues, tariffs, and opportunities are out there. Bonus distribution is all 2020 webinar attendees. So anyone who attended a webinar in 2020 for Ethanol Producer Magazine, generally about 800 people will get that December issue. And that brings us to the end of our editorial calendar. Again, I want to mention that we are always looking for story ideas. So if you have something, please email me, lgibson@bbiinternational.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, FEW, coming up June 15th through the 17th in Minneapolis. You can visit fuelethanolworkshop.com to get more information on that show. A few other events coming up that you should have on your radar. First, the Biodiesel Magazine 2020 Editorial Outlook is coming up on November 20th. And Pellet Mill Magazine's Editorial Outlook for 2020 is coming up on November 22nd. Both of those webinars coming up later on this month. International Biomass Conference and Expo in February. That's the 3rd through the 5th in Nashville. And of course, FEW 15th through the 17th in Minneapolis with the co-located Biodiesel Production Technology Summit, also in Minneapolis, June 15th through the 17th. And here is that special offer that we alluded to in the beginning of the webinar. All attendees on this webinar today can save 20% on a full-page print advertisement. You can email service@bbiinternational.com or reach out to your account manager. And that's the end of our webinar for today. Thank you for listening in. Enjoy the rest of your day.